Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything from the Pistons to the NBA draft and the Motor City Cruise.
All right, Blake, I do have one question I wanted to ask you before we dove into all the questions we got from you guys this week, and thank you for all of those. We got a ton, including quite a few voicemails, which we're both pretty excited about. But first, have a quick announcement. So, again, this will be, I believe, the third year in a row that Detroit Bad Boys, the staff of Detroit Bad Boys, we're going to do a draft live show. So it's going to be a bunch of us. Blake and I will be hosting. There'll be plenty of the DBB staff. We'll have other guests as well. That is through the entire first round of the NBA draft. So Thursday, June 26th, we'll start around 8 p.m. Guys, watch for that. We'll start pushing out some information on that shortly, where you guys can, find it, plan on it, and all that. But we wanted to get the word out now before we actually ended up, publishing all the stories and whatnot. So watch for that. That'll be first round of the draft, live show. It'll be a lot of fun. Now, Blake, what I wanted to ask you was, this weekend have the opportunity to be the best man for one of my friend's weddings. I'm very excited about this, but man, I'm stressing over the speech. So I want from you, if you got either from experience or from being at weddings and seeing what works, right? What's one or two tips for a good best man speech in your mind?
Well, I've never given a best man speech. The most I've done is, if I was standing up in a wedding, one of my friends just saying a couple words at the rehearsal dinner or something like that. I feel like an anecdote is always good if you have some sort of funny story, funny memory from it, to just get the crowd in your pocket and then really hit them with whatever emotional feels you're going to. But I'm probably the wrong person to ask about advice for it, since I've never given one myself. My brother was my best man, and he's 7 years younger than me. So he's not married yet. So maybe I should start thinking about that one day, but not yet.
I think you definitely need to be planning. The one bit of advice that I keep seeing online and from other people I've asked is to be quick, don't take too long, don't wax on forever. So I'm gonna try to keep it short, maybe just 2 to 4 minutes, somewhere in that range. But yeah, Bryce, this is exactly my thought process. Bryce says you should be stressing, Wes. Don't mess this up. It's only the biggest day of their lives. And yeah, exactly. I feel like I'm going to screw up their day, but it's fine. It's fine. It'll be a good time. Everyone will get drunk afterwards and forget about it. At least that's what I hope.
You'll do great. That's a great point by Bryce. You don't want anyone bringing out the shot clock on you, but Wes, I'm confident that won't happen to you. It's going to be great.
Well, you'd think with the whole podcast thing, right, that I'd be used to speaking to people, but it's a little different when it's just you and me. We're just sitting here, we're talking hoops, right? There's no one watching.
Yeah.
I know there are, but I don't see the eyes. I don't see so that makes me a little nervous too. But yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. I have it written. I was just wondering, I needed some last second notes, some cliff notes from you. So let's get into the first question, because like I said, we did get a lot. So this one is from Chaz Malibu, DBB comments. He asks, is the team just punting on the GM position? And we actually have a little bit of news that broke on this, I think, late last week on who Langdon might be considering. So you want to talk about that really quickly?
Yeah, so there was reporting, I believe it was from James Edwards, when him and Chams initially broke that Troy Weaver and the Pistons were parting ways. They noted that Michael Blackstone, who was in the Pelicans front office as well, I forget his actual title, was the favorite, and seems like he's the guy. James also mentioned some other names that are possibly in the mix, but I'm at least operating under the assumption that Blackstone is the guy. And personally, I could be wrong here, but I'm not super stressed or worried about the GM hire. I mean, yes, I want Trajan to get all his front office in place, but I think the more pressing or interesting decision is the future of Monty Williams, but won't go there yet because I know we have a couple questions there. But yeah, Blackstone seems like he has a good background. I'm not sure what his exact title would be, if it would be GM or how they're operating that. But it seems like a good hire to me without much knowledge of it, to be honest.
Yeah, and it does kind of follow what most teams that have a president of basketball ops tend to do. I think I was talking with Lance about this a while ago, and he's going to be a guest. Lance Caprosi, he's going to be a guest on the podcast later on this month, so we're looking forward to that, having him on. But I was chatting with him about what type of role that GM position fills. Because if you remember, Troy Weaver was the GM for the Pistons for the past 4 years. And so he's obviously the guy making those basketball decisions. But when you have a president of basketball operations, usually that GM is more of a business side individual. And that does seem to be who most of the candidates that were brought up, what they tend to be, their expertise in. So it at least tracks along that path, which I don't know. I wasn't like happy to see it, but it was nice to see that it's a little traditional. It makes sense, and that's the path that they're going. But yes, Michael Blackstone from New Orleans, obviously the connection there. That looks or sounds like where things are headed. Let's get to this next one here because we got a couple. We're gonna do like 2 for 1. So we got this from @PogleL on Twitter. It says, should the Pistons let Cade decide Monty Williams' fate? And I think we can give a quick answer to that. And then we got a voicemail also on Monty Williams that we're going to play as well. So go ahead. Should Cade Cunningham decide the fate of Monty Williams?
I think you should have a say. I don't know if he should necessarily be the end all be all. But also, like, I don't know how much Cade wants to be involved in those decisions. I mean, you'd think that he wants his voice to be heard, and as the future of this franchise, like, you would think that Trajan, the rest of the front office, even Monty Williams or whoever the head coach might be would take Cade's opinion into account because he's the guy that you're building around. But I don't know if Cade's going to be the guy making the call necessarily, but hopefully his voice is heard at least. I think that's a good thing and just helps instill confidence in your young player and allows his voice to be heard as well to let the team know like what he thinks is best for him and best for this franchise.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's one of those where you walk that tightrope. You want his opinion, but you don't want to make him have the hiring decision fall at his feet. I mean, even a guy like LeBron James, right? Like we're pretty sure LeBron James has hired and fired quite a few coaches in his career, and really only one of them I think is still coaching. That's Ty Lue. So like, even the best has an argument for being the greatest all time. Even he hasn't been incredible at picking head coaches. So look, I mean, you hired Langdon. He's the guy. He needs to make the decision. But yeah, absolutely, you want him to kind of pull the room, right? And so we got a couple of these really quick. Bobby Bucket says, "I'm drinking a nice cold beer because I got this little beverage in a koozie, as you can see." And then Thomas Hardy on Twitter says it's Mountain Dew, and I gotta clear my name here, Blake, because so we might need some like product royalties here because this is not Mountain Dew. I know it's this bright green can. It's actually a poppy soda, so it's one of the like
Okay.
healthy sodas, and it's watermelon. I hadn't had it before, but it's pretty good. I like it quite a bit. So you know, everyone, if you want to drink what I drink, go drink a poppy, not a Mountain Dew.
Yeah, I can't say I've had a ton of those. I think my wife has bought those before, and I tried it. But hey, if it has the West signature of approval, I'll definitely give it another look.
Yeah, and now we need Poppy to be a brand sponsor for this podcast. But all
Yes,
right, so
Poppy, we are
we
available.
we are available. We're ready. If you got, reach out. Our people, we'll talk to your people. I know they're listening. We'll figure it out. But we got this voicemail from a fella actually from the DPB comments. Leaves us a voicemail, and actually he left like three because I think he was having some trouble with the machine there. But so that was fun to listen to. You did great, my guy. We appreciate it. But here's his Monty Williams question.
Okay. Hi, Pindown Podcast. This is a fella from the DBB comments. Appreciate all your hard work on the podcast, and on to overcoming my fear of public speaking to give this question. First part, do you think that there will be enough firepower on the roster to properly evaluate Monty Williams' coaching if he ends up staying next year? And two, what is the bare minimum necessary to be able to properly evaluate the roster and Monty Williams' coaching decisions? Appreciate it. Y'all enjoy the rest of the day. Talk to you.
All right. So, Blake, what do you think?
Yeah, this is a great question. And a fella, shout out to you overcoming your fear of public speaking. We actually have Wes doing that with the best man speech too. So we're all doing it here. But yeah, as far as Monty Williams, I feel like it really depends on how this cap space is spent, the any trades that are made, what the draft pick looks like. I think for there to be enough firepower, you have to address needs that you know that this roster has. You have to add shooting. You have to add a defensive big that can protect the rim. If you have all those things that at least aren't a full stop, like solve to the holes that you know you have, but at least helps address something. And a Monty Williams system still isn't getting it done. If you win like 14 games again, that's definitely saying something. And I would think that Monty will have a little bit less to maybe like free reign and decision making, which might not be the case, and it also might not be a good thing. But if you have like a better roster around you, I think that there would be enough to evaluate what he does and if he's the best person to lead this franchise moving forward, if he's going to see through his contract. And as for the bare minimum, I think like we've heard the Malik Monk, we've heard the Nick Claxton, maybe even the Hartenstein talk. Like you don't know if you're going to get those guys, if they're going to come to Detroit. But if you can add a shooter, if you can add a center who can block shots, hold up better defensively, not maybe the perfect players, but someone that fits that archetype, I think that's like the bare minimum for me to see what Monty Williams can do. We don't know who's going to come here in free agency, what this roster is going to look like, but shooting, floor spacing, and rim protection are like the big things for me. So at least if you're addressing some of those, I think that's definitely enough to evaluate Monty and his system, his staff moving forward.
Yeah, I think I generally agree. And I like that you kind of split between like a proper evaluation and what's the bare minimum necessary to, get an idea of what his performances in that coaching role. And I guess I kind of want to flip the question and ask it to you again, just in the negative. So, like, what has to go wrong this offseason for you to not think we could get a good feel for Monty Williams coaching on this team next season? Right? Like, what are the things that could set up another kind of mulligan type year as we wrap up the season after?
I hope it's not a cheating answer, but I feel like something similar to the offseason that we saw last year. You move forward with your draft picks, you bring in another young player to build around. Hopefully that player addresses your needs, but what if it's a Ron Holland that the shot is in progress? He's a good defender, but he's not like a big man at all. So, and then on top of that, with all your cap space, what if we are just absorbing contracts that don't help the team in the immediate? And if you're doing that, you better be acquiring other assets moving forward. But that's not helping the product on the floor, at least next season. So for me, that would kind of just be like, what are we doing here? And hopefully that's not the case. But that's the one scenario I can see where it wouldn't be enough to get a read on Monty if he is the coach next season.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like if they're gonna punt again and basically not literally tank, but have a harsh rebuilding year to reset the rebuild, so to speak. I think I agree. It would be difficult to really get a good feel again. It'd have a lot of the same problems as this past season. This next question, this is from Ben Chulik in our live audience. He asks, would the Pistons and or Jaden Ivey accept if his ceiling was just a sixth man type of role?
I mean, I think they should, but I also think any player should accept whatever their best suited role is in the NBA. Like we're going through this draft prospect process right now, evaluating these prospects who a lot of them were the guy on their teams from growing up, high school, whatever they did in their pre-draft year to be successful in the NBA. Like a lot of guys' roles are getting different. There's only so many of those star, second, third star type players. Like a lot of your guys, the great majority in the NBA are rotation players. And like a sixth man is a crucial piece to a team. When Monty was bringing Ivy off the bench to start last season, I was kind of like, okay, like what if this is who he is? What if that better fits him playing off Cade Cunningham and Ivy being more of like the lead scorer in that secondary unit? So I think you have to accept it if that's what they see his future as, just because like if Ivy might not be that second star that we think maybe he could grow into, whether it's here or elsewhere. And if that's what it looks like, I think it has to be okay on both sides.
Yeah, I really love this question. And not just because I have actively wondered if this is kind of where Jaden Ivey is heading right now, but let's just look at it quickly in a historical context too. Like for the fifth overall pick, if you actually get a guy that is a very, very good sixth man off the bench, that's actually not bad value at all. Like, I know we all want superstars with that fifth overall pick. I know that that's what we want, and that's what we're all hoping for. And I still have a lot of hope for Jaden Ivey being an all star one day. But, like, if his career ends up a lot like what Malik Monk is right now for the Kings, like, Malik Monk's about to get paid. A lot of teams would love to have Malik Monk. It's a very good player. Like that's not bad value for that fifth pick, even in that draft where yes, you could have taken J Dub, and yes, at the same time, no one saw that coming. So in hindsight, yeah, 2020. But like if this is what it is for Jaden Ivey, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. So for the Pistons, I would hope that the Pistons would accept his role becoming a six man. Would Jaden Ivey? I mean, I don't know. We don't know him personally, and I mean, I know you said that yes, everyone should kind of accept the role that they have, but then at the same time, everyone should also strive for more, right? That's what drives you to become a better player. So, like, he doesn't have to accept it. Well, no, he doesn't have to like it, but he has to accept the reality of it, at least for now. And I would hope that would be the case. I mean, we've never gotten any indication that Jaden Ivey's anything other than a great person, great teammate. So I would think yes. Now, Bryce asked this awesome follow up question. So if this really is what it ends up being for Jaden Ivey really is just going to be, well, not just, but is going to be a six man long term. What's more valuable to the Pistons? Jaden Ivey fulfilling that role as a high level six man, or the value you could get for him in a trade?
This is such a tough question because I'm thinking about what your ideal role slash archetype is in a six man. I like Ivy in that setting, but you hope that he can shoot it better. You hope that he can defend better. Like maybe you have like a wing that you bring in that's more of that six man type guy. So if I'm picking between the two, I think I lean toward trading him right now just because I'm not fully sure what his value is on the market. And I feel like it would still, I don't think it's super high, but I think it's still high enough where you can bring back valuable pieces or future draft assets that this team is kind of handcuffed. And that would be nice considering where we are in this rebuild phase. But that said, this is such a tough one. It's so close for me, but I think maybe his trade value is just a little bit more than that 6-man role right now. And I think I'm leaning that way just because I think there might be a better fit in that 6-man role, whether it's on the team right now or elsewhere.
I think I think a lot of this question really depends on something we could honestly never know, and that's how other teams are looking at Jaden Ivey. If Jaden Ivey is a guy where other teams look at this past season and they think, hey, like he got the short straw in Detroit. He was dealt a really bad situation. They didn't use him properly, and so we still buy into that all-star type upside that honestly I still buy into. I still think that he has. And if a bunch of teams fall into that, then I would think that you could get more for him than the value of him being a high level sixth man. Now that also requires that the Pistons would know that Jaden Ivey's just projecting to be a sixth man, which you also, I mean, like you could be kind of confident in it, but you can't really know that either. And if a bunch of other teams are saying, hey, this dude's a star, maybe you're wrong and maybe you want to keep him. It's a tough question. It's a really good question. I'm with you though. I'm leaning towards, because I think Jaden Ivey still has that kind of all-star ish upside. I think trading him could get you that level of return, which would be better than him being a sixth man. But that's me assuming he's still going to be a very, very, very good starter one day, and maybe that's not true.
Yeah, and Bobby brought up in the chat too, like, what if the return is Denny Advia? Like, Wes, I
Oh,
know that's your
that's my
guy,
guy.
so that's an ideal like that. I mean, I feel like Denny would start on this roster, but if he is your 6-man,
Oh yeah,
that is more of an ideal role for me. And maybe you can get, I know the Wizards are at 2, so it's kind of tough. And maybe there are some other like draft assets too, but I don't know. Like Denny is a better asset or more valuable asset, I should say, right now than Ivy, I think, to me.
I would think so as well. All right, let's go into this one here. This is another voicemail question. It is from Evan.
Blake, Wes, what's up? It's Evan calling in from sunny Calgary, Alberta. I had a question about Reed Shepherd. I'm a big fan of his. I'm not a big college guy, but I've really enjoyed watching his tape, and I've yet to hear anybody make the argument against him, a cogent argument. Why not Reed Shepherd? Right? Like obviously the transferable skill is he's a knockdown shooter. He's a dog on defense. Like I see a little bit of Fred VanVleet in him, like this smaller guy who's going to be tenacious on defense. He's going to get in passing lanes, and I don't know. He seems to me like the perfect 1A to Cade Cunningham. Like I don't know. I've yet to see a cogent case against him. Maybe it's just that he's not going to be available. But if you want to answer that, I'd appreciate it. Yeah, shout out you guys. Keep doing the good work, and yeah, chat soon. Back soon. Bye bye.
All right, great question, Blake. What do you think? What's the argument against Reed Shepherd?
Yeah, Evan, shout out to you for the question, and calling in from Calgary. I love it. I think it's tough because Reed is he was such an efficient player in his freshman year. Like the numbers jump off the page. I feel like I haven't been thinking about Reed to the Pistons as much, like Evan mentioned, just because I'm not sure if he's going to be there. But I was talking to Bryce about this week. Like now that Peyton Sandfort withdrew, who Bryce was right in saying he's probably the best shooter in the draft. Like, who is that best shooter now? Bryce, and I agree with him, said Reed, and Jared McCain has a case. There's a couple other guys, but Reed shooting 52% from three in his freshman year, you have to look at that. But if you're going to pick on him, it has to be size and defense. Just like I was watching some Reed tape the other day, and you see this whenever you're watching him, but sometimes it is crazy. Like, just how much smaller he looks than everyone else on the floor. It's like a cheat answer to say that as well. But I don't know. I just think when you're picking a guard that is not like Reed isn't a Rob Dillingham who can come in and get a bucket. But that said, Reed is going to make the right reads, no pun intended. He's going to make the right basketball plays. He's a defensive playmaker and just does the right things. And he's a player that winning basketball teams, like anyone would really love to have that, aside from everything he does shooting the ball, which is crazy. And what I really like about his fit next to Cade is I could see Reed playing more on ball or off ball. There were a lot of mouths to feed in Kentucky, so he kind of had to do that already. But I love Reed, so it's tough. But if I had to pick on him, the argument against him is just size. First and foremost, do you want to draft a undersized guard with a top 5 pick? And two, like, what are you going to do with him defensively? Like, he's definitely not the ideal defender to put next to Cade, but his instincts make me think that you can make it work and he won't be a total liability as a defender like Rob Dillingham is.
I think I would add two other things as kind of the case against Reed. Even though I very much like Reed, I have like a top 5 or top 6 grade on him for the Pistons big board right now for me. But if we're going to make an argument against him, like you said, size, on-ball defense, I don't really think that his off-ball defense gets talked about enough. He does have a tendency to fall asleep. He gets back cut quite a bit, and he was really great at recovering from that. He can jump. Obviously, like his testing showed, and he's very quick. So when he did get backdoored against like college athletes, a lot of times it ended up in a steal or a block because he recovered. But like, I don't know if that's going to be the case, right? In the NBA with better athletes that are a lot taller than him instead of just like a little taller than him. So that does worry me a little bit. And then the other thing I would add, so Evan, you mentioned a little bit of a Fred VanVleet comparison for him. I'm not sure that Reed Sheppard is that on-ball point guard type of guy. I view him more as a secondary creator, not the guy that you would really want initiating all of the offense. Um, yeah, and so like if he's not a true point guard and he does have these concerns, both on the ball and off the ball on defense, and you add in the size, like I do understand why some people are a little lower on him. But again, like his shooting numbers are insane. His defensive creation was insane as a secondary creator. Like if you slant the floor already for him and let him attack that, he's probably winning that. He's a very great processor. He's a good passer. Like I like Reed a lot, but those would be my arguments against him.
Yeah, and Bobby brings it up in the chat too. Like, we just wish he was Dalton Connect size. Like, I think if Reed was 2 inches taller, he would probably be the clear number 1 prospect. So unfortunately, that's not the case. But he's like an undersized guard. That's no secret. I get why teams would be hesitant to take a player like that, but just what he did in his freshman season, like coming into the year, no one thought that Reed Sheppard was probably even going to come out this year, let alone be a top 5 whatever prospect he is. But he's proven it, and it doesn't seem like he's not going to come into the NBA and shoot 52% from 3, but he was so effective. That he's going to be a great shooter and be able to provide secondary creation, like you mentioned, and can maybe do some more stuff on ball too later on. So I think he'd be a great pick. And yeah, I've had this conversation like on Twitter a little bit. There are just so many guys at number 5 that I would be okay with the Pistons drafting, and Reed is 100% on that list and probably near the top of it.
Yeah, me too. Let's stick with the draft here for these next 2 questions. This one is from Dylan22 in the DBB comments. Kind of 2 questions in one. He says Ron Holland seems to have the most upside at 5, so I'm curious if you would agree with that. Does Ron Holland have maybe the most upside at 5 in this draft? And then as well, he says that you may as well keep swinging for the fences when you're drafting in the top 5, and then use free agency and trades to improve the team otherwise, right? So I'm curious on those 2 things. One, is Ron Holland the highest upside prospect that might be there at 5? And then 2, what do you think about the idea of kind of taking that home run swing with the draft pick and then signing free agents and making trades for the now, right? So draft long term, but do those decisions for short term.
So I think Ron is the prospect with the most upside at 5. There are a couple other names that I think are in that conversation. I mean, Wes, your guy Trajan Langdon is obviously a home run swing for the fences, just as like a more raw product that has showed great things. I also thought about Modest a bit here, just because the shot is a bit up in the air. But the thing with Ron Holland is, he gets downhill, attacks the rim. He's a good defender. He crashes the glass, and he's a defensive playmaker too. And his athleticism is crazy. He gets out quick in transition. I watched a little bit more of Ron Holland this morning, actually. I've just been thinking about him for the Pistons a bit more ever since the Langdon hire. So I think Ron probably has the most. There are probably a couple other guys in this conversation as well, but I think he has the most upside to develop into a secondary star on a winning team, or if it's third star, whatever it is. With the Ignite this season, he was the guy. He was on ball, creating a ton. I don't think that's going to be his role in the league, but that's probably not what it should be anyway. So yeah, I do think he is probably the guy with the most upside at 5. That said, my ideal draft philosophy for the Pistons this year is address one of your needs that you have. Hopefully you bring in someone that can shoot it. Hopefully you bring in someone that can protect the rim. Ron isn't the guy that has either of those things like high up on his checklist, but I think I buy, even though he's not known as like a shooter, I think I buy the shot developing more than I thought I did initially. So if you love Ron Holland, like, I'm all with it. Like, we already brought up Malik Monk, Nick Claxton, Isaiah Hartenstein. Those guys address needs that you have, and they can impact your roster, your product on court more immediately than Ron Holland probably can. So I'm with the ideation of going for upside, like taking the best prospect available, and that as long as you address everything else in the offseason, whether it's through free agency or trades.
So with Ron Holland, YouTube users bringing this up in the chat, and I agree with it. But he's saying that Ron Holland, he's a high energy defender, not always a good defender. Salon, he mentions, is the same way. I agree with both of those things. I'd also add that Asar Thompson last year falls exactly into that category, and so that's made me a lot more open to how these guys can translate those defensive skills into the NBA, where there's so much less, let's just say, structure. And there's a lot more freelance on the defensive end. I think that's a big reason that I probably underestimated with Asar Thompson coming out of OTE. There's also been a couple of comments with Asar and Holland. You don't want them on the same team together, and I would disagree. So I'm with Truth Teller 2011 here. He says you can't play them on the floor together because the spacing would be bad, and that's where I've fallen with it as well. Like you can have them on the same roster, but you cannot let them overlap. So what that probably means for Ron Holland is not a ton of minutes in year one with the Pistons. If you figure Asar Thompson's going to have a big role, if Asar Thompson isn't going to have a big role, then literally every second that Asar is not on the court could be potential Ron Holland minutes. But the more you tick up those Asar Thompson minutes, the less there is for Ron Holland. I'm trying to think of other guys that might have an argument there for most upside that you didn't mention.
YouTube user brought up Castle in the chat.
Yeah, Steph Castle's not quite the athlete and doesn't quite have the size that Ron Holland does. I think Castle's closer to the ceiling than Ron Holland is. And that's not saying either of them are like, right away very close to the guy they're going to be in 5 to 10 years, right? But I think Castle's closer to it. He's a little more developed. He's got a better feel, but the athleticism, like when you're just literally talking raw ceiling, the fact that Ron Holland plays with so much energy and such a high motor, he's such a plus athlete. He does have a good handle on the ball. He already kind of has a couple of go-to moves that he uses. Like you could see something unique there that could be fairly special, and that makes the ceiling pretty high, even if it's a ways away for the guy. It really does all fall on that jump shot. Um, and then, like you said, I really love the idea actually of trying to hit a home run with that draft pick, and then just playing out the rest of the offseason as if you didn't. Like figure that guy's not on the roster at all. Fill out the roster with players that can play now. Don't bank on anything from the rookie. And then, hey, if they force their way into the lineup, fantastic, awesome. If not, then it's a developmental year, redshirt year. I would say unrelated, but you mentioned that Tidjane Salaam might be a home run swing. I think Tidjane Salaam's like a really, really hard swing for a triple. He's I don't think he's necessarily going to be a home run one day. I think it's more like Aaron Gordon type ceiling for him. But let's jump to a Twitter question. Actually, this is from at Rocky Salippo. Says the rebuild has been very chaotic for the past 4 years. Would this look very different with a more linear progression or journey for the team? So, I guess if you like rewind back to Cade's draft and then kind of fast forward with more linear development out of guys, like maybe you take out Cade's injury in year 2. We don't yo-yo Jaden Ivey around, those types of things. Do you think it looks different? Like, was this just partially a product of bad luck?
Maybe a little, but losing pretty much a whole season with Cade, and he missed time to start his rookie year as well. I feel like there's no perfect linear path really, probably in any situation, but I think things definitely could have broke a different way, and we might be standing somewhere differently now. The one thing that points back that I don't even know if this is linear growth. It might be more of an upward trajectory, but if the past offseason was managed differently, you brought in guys that helped make the best out of Cade Cunningham and Duran, just add some spacing. I think that would have definitely at least kept things on track a little bit or got closer to that linear line. So, yeah, I think it could have looked different. But that said, maybe this team, but with what we saw, they definitely weren't ready to make a leap. But if you put them with a more competent and complementary roster, I think it does at least get you to more of that like growth that you were expecting, other as opposed to falling off a cliff, like the wheels just falling off, like what happened this year.
Yeah, the only thing like outside of changing player personnel moves that I can think of is, like what if Cade doesn't get hurt in year 2, even though that was a long-term issue for him, right? Imagine if he doesn't get hurt, he's got that full season under his belt. They win more than 17 games. It's probably close to like in the low 20s, right? 22, 23, something like that. Barring some lottery luck, like that severely changes how this past, like last season's offseason would have gone. You're probably out of a Sar Thompson range. You are probably thinking you're closer than you did anyway with what you do in free agency and trades. So I don't know. Maybe you don't fire Dwayne Casey. Like that changes things as well. Like I don't know. That's the only thing. Like if you're looking for a pivot point, I feel like that could be an easy one. If Cade doesn't miss that whole season, how do things look differently? But that said, like you bring it up, the journey it's never linear for teams. It's very rarely like improvement over improvement over improvement. Very very frequently, guys, teams take step backs in one year, regroup, better the next year, learn from it. Like it's never easy like that. So I'm really not sure it would have looked any different, to be honest with you. Because I just don't think that linear journey is reasonable or even likely, even moving forward. Like it's going to be up and down from here on out too.
Agreed. And that's not just a Detroit thing, like you said. It's everyone. Like I know we've brought up the Magic as a case study before. They went through those like losing streaks and losing times as well before everything fit together. I mean, they had that lottery luck. They knocked it out of the park with the Franz Wagner pick as well. So, yeah, it's the good thing is it's not just a situation here.
Yeah, no, agreed. So let's get on to this next one. Oh, actually, you know what? This is a circle back question. So when we were talking about Jaden Ivey, and the value he might have in a trade versus him being in that sixth man role, this is asked to me, but I'm going to ask it to you first. So YouTube user asks, what actual return do you think Jaden Ivey could get in a trade right now? So I'm curious, what do you think? What's the type of package? You don't have to name specific names, but the type of package that you think you might be able to get for Jaden Ivey tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I have Denny in my head from Bobby's comment earlier, but honestly, I don't even know how realistic that is, if he's even available. The other thing that's immediately jumping out to me is I don't know if Ivy makes sense in Atlanta or if they'd even want him, but maybe you can find a deal centered around Jaden Ivy that returns you DeAndre Hunter. And now that they have the number one pick, what are they going to do with their center situation? Would you absorb Clint Capella's contract? I don't think like he provides value to this team. He addresses a need, but also if they're going with Alex Sarr, are they open to moving on from Onyeka Okongwu? Like, I think that's an interesting name as well. I don't know if you could get both of those guys, but a package like that, ideally you have someone that I don't think you're getting back a couple starters for Jaden Ivey, but someone who can at least like ideally a wing, and then if you can get like a backup big, if it's Okongwu, I think he's probably your starter, like the big that you're building around, but someone that can address some of the defensive concerns that we have with like Jalen Duran.
Yeah, I think DeAndre Hunter's a really good name to bring up if it's just like 1-to-1. If you're just going to trade Jaden Ivey and not add anything to it, like the pick or even like a Jalen Duren, something like that. I think that you're looking in that category of player where they're on their second contract, but they're candidates to have a breakout year. DeAndre Hunter would fall into that category. There are a few others across the league, not all not rookies, not all wings, but maybe like Anthony Simons, that kind of guy, that kind of player, where it's like they're close. They're knocking on the door of being really good, but they're on a larger contract, and the team needs to make some salary moves, and so you make that swap. I do think if you're gonna add, and it would be a day one starter. YouTube user says that he doesn't think you get a day one starter. I think for the Pistons you get a day one starter. I don't know if you're stealing a starter from another team that's a lot better than the Pistons. But for the Pistons, whoever you trade Ivy for, I do think would be a starter. I would add, though, like if you want to add that number 5 overall pick, I do think that gets you into that, DeJounte Murray, Brandon Ingram, that kind of B list star tier of NBA player. I do think that gets you right into that range if that's something that you want to do. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But Jaden Ivey plus the number 5 pick, I think gets you really close.
Yeah, and like Brooklyn as well jumps out. Like, the Pistons would probably have to take on Ben Simmons's money, but would they attach some other like asset? And I don't know what it might be off the top of my head, but like, is there a potential deal there as well? I could see that making sense, or them being interested in Ivy, I guess.
All right. So for this next question, we got actually a couple of voicemails talking about the big men. So let's play this one from Isaiah, and then we'll play another one shortly thereafter.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Isaiah. Now, I had an interesting question. Like, I had a couple, but I feel like, do you think we should trade Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart and replace them with a draft a big man, or sign a big man that's give us more veteran presence, or get somebody in the draft? Because I don't lie, I like that big man for Connecticut. I think he'd be good. I feel like we should move on for Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart. Like, that's how I feel.
All right. So what do you think? Do you think the Pistons need like just an entire new center rotation? And gosh, I mean, if they go and go down that route, what do you think you could get back from Duren and Stewart in a trade? Not necessarily packaged, but individually.
I'm struggling to, I guess, think if, like, I don't know if Isaiah Stewart is really on the table. I mean, if he brings you back like a decent package, it should definitely be entertained. But I think I'm more in the camp of, like, I don't think I'm ready to just give up and move on from Jalen Duren, but I think we know what, like, we saw this full year and what he did, or I guess I should say didn't do defensively. So I think that you definitely need to add a big who is going to protect the rim. In the perfect ideal world, they can space the floor, but those big men don't grow on trees by any means. I like Donovan Clingan too. I'm not sure if he's going to be there at 5, but he definitely addresses your concerns defensively. Or if you're just going to address it on the trade market or in free agency, like, if you can bring in Clint Capella for the cheap or next to nothing, that makes sense. Hartenstein is the ideal for me. I don't know how gettable he's going to be. And then there's Nick Claxton as well that we've brought up. So I think if you have to move on from one or both of Jalen Duren and or Isaiah Stewart to address that need, I can get it, but I think Stewart's ideally your backup 5 in the long run. Jalen Duren, I'm wondering like where he fits in. I could still see a role for him on the team. But if you're talking about him and Isaiah Stewart, and we think our ideal is that Isaiah Stewart is your backup 5 off the bench, what does that mean for Jalen Duren? I wonder if that almost pushes him out and like lends you into trading him for whatever you can get, whether it's a wing and you go and get a big through the draft or free agency.
Yeah, to that point, I mean, maybe this makes me in the minority, but honestly, I think Isaiah Stewart would bring you back more in a trade than Jalen Duren would. I look around the league, and yes, I understand he's very young, but try to find a team that has use for a big man that is as bad or performed as poorly on defense as Jalen Duren did last year, who also can't shoot. I know his free throw percentage went up, but we've got no indication that he can shoot mid-range jump shots or three-point shots. So he can't shoot, and last season was awful, really, really, really bad on defense. So go, look around the league. What teams have use for that? There's maybe 2, 3, or 4. Like there's not a lot. And honestly, the Pistons aren't one of them. But with Isaiah Stewart, like you mentioned, he's kind of that ideal backup center for contending teams. You can play him in the playoffs because he can shoot and he can switch. He's high energy. He can rebound. And he's a very good defender for his size. And again, for his size, he's a very, very good rim protector as well. His block shots numbers were obviously better than Durham, but he actively impacts opposing teams' shots around the rim far more because he does have a very good wingspan as well. So honestly, I think you could get quite a bit out of Isaiah Stewart in a trade. And Truth Teller 2011 brings up the potential that, maybe the Pelicans would be interested with him as a throw-in for, part of a Brandon Ingram trade. I definitely think that that's possible. I could see the Pelicans wanting Isaiah Stewart a whole heck of a lot more than they would want Jalen Duren. I still think probably the best mix up for value for them would be Jaden Ivey in the number 5 overall pick. But if they want Isaiah Stewart at number 5, works for me, I guess. But that point is, Isaiah Stewart, we know a lot of teams have been interested in him, and he has a lot of homes where he'd fit really, really well. And that is just not the case for Jalen Duren. So in terms of trade value, yeah, Isaiah Stewart.
Yeah, I'm wondering if Isaiah Stewart is more valuable at a trade deadline for a team that is trying to make move, kind of like what Dallas did at the trade deadline this offseason, or this season, excuse me, compared to an offseason trade where a team wants to buy the upside of Jalen Duren and or Jaden Ivey. But that said, Stewart might not be available at the trade deadline. So I just wonder, I'm debating in my head, where the value lies with those 2 players in Stewart and Duren, and you can loop Ivy in that as well. I don't know. I'm starting to think Isaiah Stewart might bring you more at the deadline than Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren, but I don't know. I still see teams buying the upside of Duren and Ivy, and I don't think their value probably isn't as much as we want it to be or think it is, but I still think that there is value there based on where they are in their careers and the flashes that they've shown and what they do well.
Yeah, for me, 2 things are true here. One, Isaiah Stewart has more value than Jalen Duren, specifically in the trade market. I don't know about Jaden Ivey. I would think Ivy would have more, but I'm feeling fairly confident that Stewart would get more in a trade than Duren would, and maybe I'm wrong. We'll find out. But I think that's because, like I mentioned, he just has more places that could use him, whether that's in the offseason or at the deadline. Who knows? But at the same time, I also would say that because, or not because, but kind of a product of Isaiah Stewart being a player that fits a lot of places and does a lot of really good things from that backup spot. I also think he's just more valuable to the Pistons right now than, Jalen Duren is. And maybe that's a hot take, but hey, if you start Isaiah Stewart at the 5 over Duren, I wonder how many more games you win with a floor spacing 5 who can block some shots and actually play some defense. I know that he can't catch lobs, but hey, you still got Duren off the bench for that. So who knows? I don't know. Let's Bobby Buckets, we see it. He's putting in a lot of comments. So let's get to the voicemail that he left talking about the mock draft that Bryce, shout out to our guy, Bryce Simon, go listen to the Pistons Pulse. We'll be doing a lot of fun stuff there with draft content as well. But talking about a mock draft that he and Sam Vecini did on Game Theory.
Hello, bad boys. I had to make sure to address you two the correct way to keep up with tradition after your first voicemail. This is Bobby Buckets from DBB. Sam Vecini just released a new mock draft this week on The Athletic. So let's say the top 4 picks in this draft are going to go Sarr, Reza Shea, Shepard, and Castle. If I had a big board, I think it would be Sarr, Reza Shea, Shepard, and then I think I would have Connect next. So I would draft Dalton Connect at number 5 in this scenario. So my question for you guys, if the top 4 picks fall the way that Sam predicts, who would you take? Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, Blake, what do you think? If the board falls Alex Sarr, Zachary Risa-Shea, Reed Shepard, and Steph Castle, who are you taking at number 5 and why?
Okay, so if it's me, and I feel like this might not be how it would play out, but I would take Donovan Clingan. We just spent a ton of time talking about how the big man situation is gonna look. I think if you bring Clingan in, he answers a lot of questions, definitely cleans up what you're asking for with a big man defensively. Incredible size. He has good length. I know we've seen like the noise of him trying to shoot the 3 at the combine and everything like that. He didn't shoot the 3 in college, so maybe that comes along at some point. Maybe it doesn't. But still, I think what he does for you in the pick and roll, plus everything he brings defensively, I think that would be my pick, just because it addresses a need for me, and I have Clingan higher on my board than probably at least Castle, maybe Reed as well. Debating, it's tough for me between Clingan and Risa-Shea. If I was putting my hat on into maybe more what the Pistons would do, I could see them taking that upside swing with Ron Holland or Dalton Connect, like Bobby brings up here. Or, I mean, I wouldn't take Modest in this situation, but maybe he has fans in the front office as well. Not going to bring up the Arn Tellem connections here, even though I just did. But yeah, Clingan is just like such a good prospect for me. And I know that he has conditioning concerns, like how many minutes are you going to play him right off the gate? But I think if I'm operating in the current state of the team where I know that we need to add a defensive big, Clingan would be my guy, but I could see the team actually prioritizing a wing like we saw Trajan do in the drafts where he was with New Orleans.
Yeah, quickly before I answer, guys, we got to stop with this whole Arn Tellem thing with Montas.
Yeah, sorry I went into it.
No, you're fine. It's just, it bugs me. It bugs me. Like we talked about the front office stuff, like his connections are everywhere. It's like playing the 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever that game is. Like you can't avoid it. It's all over the place, especially when you start going down like, oh, well, he knew this person who knew this person who knew this person. The other thing is like Matas Buzelis is getting top 5 buzz for a reason. It has nothing to do with the Detroit Pistons. I know he keeps getting mocked there, but like, I think KOC just had him go number 4 in a recent mock draft to San Antonio. It's not just Detroit. Like, people really like this kid. He's a good player. I've got him 10. So like I'm not taking him at 5, but he's a good player. All right, like. Yeah, this isn't Dervitas Servitas or whatever his name was. This isn't one of those situations where you're going to take a guy at the back end of the draft who like made every draft analyst go, "Who is that?" Like, nope. This is a guy who's getting lottery buzz because he's a lottery prospect. So let's just drop that. But all right, my answer. I think Klingon's a good one. I was thinking about Klingon as well. The wild card for me is still Nikola Topic. Um, I get that it's not a great fit. He is the highest rated player left on my board, though, for just in general. Like I still have him at number 2. I know he's got the partial ACL tear, and you're probably missing out on at least the start of the season with him. And that's fine with me. He's a very, very good player. Someone's going to get a steal if he really falls, in my opinion. So I'd be thinking about Topic there. Connect is a good name. And I got to pitch my guy to John Salon again. We mentioned him earlier, but kind of that Aaron Gordon type. He's very raw. Probably not going to play a ton of minutes right away, but the way that he plays, he does everything the right way. Plays with high energy, high effort. He's incredibly athletic. He's got a ton of air, like space on his frame to add strength as well. So the guy could end up being a beast. I think earlier I said Aaron Gordon. Like that's my high end outcome for him. And it's a lot of other people's as well. So those would be my names. Like Bobby Buckets brings up Connect, and we've talked about him on this podcast. We both really like him a lot. He's more of an immediate fit, more so than potentially a long term swing. And I'm just starting to personally shift more to guys that have that long term upside, and then going into free agency and making trades to you know not bank on it in year one, and try to improve the team that way. So, to the question here about Topic, does the partially torn ACL change anything? I mean, not for me. It seems like he's starting to slide down boards, though. Do you get the sense that this injury is, hurting his draft stock at all?
I think it is. Yeah, I think it is, and I don't know if, let's say we found out about this injury a month ago, I don't know if it would hurt the draft stock. I think it's more of like, we're so close to the draft, we're just finding out this news. A partially torn ACL is definitely not something that you want with a player that you're investing a top 5 pick in. Wes, when we talked about it, when Topic had that injury, it didn't look serious in the initial news we got was that it wasn't. But coming out this week, I think it just adds a little bit of chaos. I don't know if I would necessarily move Topic down my board because of it. But if I'm the Pistons, where I already have like Topic isn't the cleanest fit, but he might be the best prospect available when it's all said and done. I think the injury just makes me question even more that debate of when you go for fit versus best player available. And now with this injury, it makes me lean a little bit more towards someone that's a cleaner fit. But that said, there's still a lot of good prospects. And like you mentioned, if it truly does have him fall on draft night, like someone's gonna get a steal. Like he'll probably fall into the Spurs lap at 8, and they can add him to whoever they take at 4, which would be a heck of a draft.
So with the fit thing, I bring it up every time, but I don't fully understand why so many people seem to be against the idea of pairing a big, incredibly high IQ, high processing point guard in Cade Cunningham with a second big, incredibly high IQ, and high level processing guard in Topic. Like, I don't quite understand the problem. I know that Killian Hayes did not exactly work out in Detroit, but the idea behind Killian Hayes next to Cade Cunningham still does make a lot of sense. I know Topic is not the defender and won't be the defender that Killian Hayes was, but like that kind of guy that can really attack advantages that are created by Cade and then can play out of that. It just the domino chains that you could set off for the defense are through the roof. It's the idea of Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. It's the idea of Luca and uh, Kyrie Irving, LeBron James. Like there's been a lot of success with this type of setup, and I'm not saying that Cade Cunningham is any of those guys yet. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't. But like guys who see the floor that well and who play that unselfishly, I don't understand how they could not fit together. Like the whole there's only one ball thing. It goes all the way back to the big three in Miami, right? Well, they made it work.
Yeah, for me, it's just the shooting concerns, and I don't like Truth Tella brought it up in the chat as well. Like I think that's why it's more of a conversation for me. But like Topic could even be the best player in this draft class. I just think where it is and the facts that he made a level up in competition this year. He was battling injuries, now going through another one. You didn't see the, I guess, everything you wanted to see, but focusing on what he does well that you mentioned, like he's the best true point guard in this draft, and he's doing that at the size that he is. Those players aren't easy to bring in, but yeah, I don't know if you're putting him next to Cade, like ideally he can shoot, or you can at least have confidence that he'll get better as a shooter, because then it lends into questions on what do you do with Asar Thompson? Who's your big? Like now that Jalen Duren can't shoot, but other guys have shooting concerns too. Like we mentioned, Ron Holland, Modest. We don't know what he's going to do. Steph Castle as well. So it's a question with anyone, but yeah, if only we were a little bit more sure on what Topic's shot would be, I could definitely see the fit.
Well, we talked about this last week, I think, but the draft pick does not have to fix the shooting issues. Trajan Langdon has to fix the shooting issues. Like it's not on the shoulders of Nikola Topic or Steph Castle or Ron Holland to come in and shoot 40% from three. Like, could they get guys like that? Yes, if they draft Reed Shepard, Risa Shea, or Dalton Connect, then absolutely, they're going to contribute to solving the floor spacing issue. But even like with Topic specifically, as a guy who's going to pair next to Cade, he doesn't have to shoot. But if he doesn't shoot, then the rest of the roster does, right? Like like you said, it just would bring up questions on Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren, questions that we're already discussing, by the way. It's not new talking about, Asar Thompson and Duren can't be on the floor together. Asar Thompson maybe isn't a great fit with Cade because he can't shoot, et cetera, et cetera. Like we're already having these discussions. So like we said last week, like the draft doesn't have to fix it. It's on Trajan Langdon, and having different young guys instead of just having the same young guys, not a problem. I think that's something that we should all be open to. Do you have a final thought? Because I want to get to this one last voicemail question.
Yeah. Only quick thing I'll say is I think our guy Derek Brooks brought this up. I saw him in the chat. I'm not sure if he's still here, but he mentioned that the New Orleans developed, like Herb Jones wasn't a good shooter coming in, and he's developed into that. So hopefully the development staff that they had, maybe Trajan, can bring them over. And some of these guys that we do have questions on their shot, like maybe that they can get better in this system. We haven't really seen it yet. I mean, Cade's developed into really like the league average and shown that he can be better than that. But the other guys, it hasn't really come along. So hopefully with this new front office that we can see some more development shooting wise as well.
Yeah, exactly. Like even with Asar Thompson, if he's as bad of a shooter next season as he was this past season, you could make him a starter. You just need someone who could really shoot it at the 2, the 4, and the 5. Like that's not unreasonable. You can make that happen. So same with Topic. If he's not going to shoot it and you want him to start, then you need a 3, 4, 5 that can shoot. You can make that happen. We got a whole off season. Let's get to this last question here. This one is we'll close out on a Jalen Duren question.
There. I'm Pistons fan, been listening for a while here, and I know a lot of the off season's been talking about either, trading Jalen Duren or Jaden Ivey. I think I'm just curious. I know Duren's got defensive problems. He probably got worse this past year, but in terms of shooting, his free throw percentage skyrocketed from 61% his first year to 79% his second year. And from February onward, that's about roughly 29 games, decent sample size, he was shooting roughly 85% from the free throw line. I was wondering if there's some shooting potential from Jalen in the future and what that might do to the Pistons roster. Is this something we can buy knowing that free throw percentage sometimes leads to, other shooting percentages? Thanks.
All right, Blake. So what do you think? Jalen Duren and his potential as a shooter, his free throw percentage did go up quite a bit. So what do you think?
Yeah, this is a great question. And Wes, I'm really interested to hear what you think about the jump in free throw percentage. But so for me, it's tough because free throw percentage is an indicator of potential shot development. Just like with Duren, I know he tried shooting threes in summer league, and we were all kind of like, oh, is that something that he's adding to his game? Are we going to see it? We didn't see it this past year. So going based on what he did, excluding the free throw percentage, effective near the rim like he should be as a big man. In the mid-range, from his rookie season to year 2, he was pretty much flat in the short mid-range. But in the long mid-range, he shot 33% in his rookie year and went down to 20% in year 2. In all mid-range, he was kind of flat. So he wasn't taking a ton of long mid-range jumpers, but that still did go down a decent amount. And those stats were according to Cleaning the Glass, by the way. So I don't know, just like that there hasn't really been the willingness to step outside and shoot, and we haven't really seen much of anything there. I'm not really buying it. I guess we do see bigs that come in and aren't great free throw shooters and focus on that and work on it and never add outside shooting to their game. That's kind of where I am at with Duren. But that said, if he is able to do it, I think it unlocks a ton of things for the offense. I've talked a ton about hoping to find that floor spacing big somewhere. I just don't think it's Jalen Duren. But if it is, that solves a lot of your other problems, like what we were just talking about with Topic on if you're putting out there 1 to 2 guys who can't shoot, the rest of them have to be able to. And if Duren is taking up one of those spots, like we saw what happened there, but if he can be like what Isaiah Stewart's doing, I think that opens up a whole lot of possibilities on what you can do surrounding him and Cade.
Do you still have that page up that had his numbers?
Yeah.
So what was his makes and attempts for both mid-range and long mid-range?
Let me see. I'm not sure if I can filter to totals. I just have percentages here. I can't filter to total attempts.
All right. I was trying to get somewhere, but I've looked. So on Basketball Reference, I can't remember what the numbers were. Point was that they were very small for both last season and the year before his rookie year. So it's not like, he was at 33%, you said, and it went down, but it's not like it was 33% on, 200 attempts or something. It was 33% on, maybe 10 attempts or something in that range. It was very small. And there still were not a lot of attempts this past season as well. My concerns, like you said, there have been big men that have come into the league as bad free throw shooters and have become better free throw shooters. Andre Drummond even falls into that category. He's much better now, especially for a big, which kind of lowers your floor of being okay. Um, Duran, I don't buy the touch with him. I know that's maybe a little bit of a hot take, but I don't. He doesn't have the softest touch at all times. It's not consistent around the rim. And when you pair that with how bad his form looks, like his base is all over the place. His hands they collapse on each other. I think his wrists almost hit a few times. It's just a very awkward looking jump shot, even from the free throw line. And I know that guys can shoot with bad looking shots and have it go in. Like it does happen all the time, but man, I don't see it. To me, this feels a little more like that fool's gold, like we were talking about at the combine, where Klingon shoots very well from three in an empty gym, wide open with very little pressure outside of performing for scouts. So yeah, I get the idea. It'd be great if he could, and a lot of people make that Bam Adebayo comparison. But I can just tell you, you guys can go look this up if you would like to. But year one and year two for both of those guys, the attempts and the makes in mid range, long mid range, and then 3-point line, like it's not all that close. And Bam showed a lot more guard skills early on, which Duran has not done. So yeah, I'm not buying the jump shot.
Yeah, so I looked up some more on the side. So last season, Jalen Duren took 558 field goals, and 509 of those were within 10 feet or less. So that's obviously where he lives. He only took 4 threes. So, like you mentioned, the sample size just isn't really there, even in like the mid range, to make a good call on how he can develop. Like, hopefully he does. The free throw percentage is great and probably tells us something. Like, I'm sure he can shoot threes, but being able to shoot it like in a game scenario when I mean, no one's gonna like defend him closely, but it's a totally different thing. And I just think, like you said as well, Duran sits more in the camp of being a big man who focus on his free throws, like knowing that you can't be the hack a Drummond kind of guy, but the outside shot doesn't really lend itself to that for him specifically, like it would within maybe like wing prospects that we're evaluating. And Donovan Clingan is a good use case for this as well. Like he shot it well at the combine. We saw the videos of him, but he didn't really take any threes at UConn. So it's a similar situation for me.
I know I keep bringing up the name, but it is a guy genuinely that I think Duran is fairly comparable to at this point. And that's Andre Drummond. Andre Drummond was a better defender at this point in his career than Jalen Duran is. Andre Drummond was a far worse free throw shooter at this point in his career than Jalen Duran is. I only bring up Andre Drummond here in this context to say that there were many fans at the time who were a little annoyed that Andre Drummond seemed to really want to practice 3-point shots in the offseason because he needed to be better as a defender. And, for the sake of consistency, maybe these same people should be a little annoyed that Jalen Duran wants to really shoot the mid-range and 3-point shot when he's a worse defender than Andre Drummond was at this time. So that's neither here nor there. That's just my 2 cents. Blake, this was a good show. You got any final thoughts before we close out?
No, I mean, yeah, I know we tend to harp on Jalen Duran a lot. Like he does. We know that putting like a lob threat like him next to Cade is great. It's just the personnel surrounding them, and it's a question. It's not even just Duran. Like you can ask this question for Ivy or Asar Thompson. Like, are you going to prioritize putting one of them next to Cade and then filtering around them? Or like there almost has to be an odd man out, I guess. And it'll be really interesting to see if Trajan Langdon shares that perspective, and if so, and they decide to move on or adjust rotations from one of these young pieces, like who that might be.
And just real quickly, we've mentioned this before, but to close us out, that shooting and defense are very, very rarely things that players improve when they've not shown aptitude to do so previously. Like, it is very rare for anybody who is playmaking is one of these as well, but anybody who's a very, very bad defender to just magically become one in 2 years because they're young and they figure it out. Like, that doesn't happen all that often. Same with shooting. Guys that are terrible shooters, like Asar Thompson, no one should really be banking on him becoming a league average 3-point shooter at some point in his career. That would be unreal. It'd be great if he did, but it's kind of unreasonable to expect it. And then same thing with if we could remember back to like Rodney Stuckey days, the hope was that he could become a really great point guard, right? But he was a combo guard. He really didn't have that playmaking vision. It just didn't come naturally to him. That's also something that, it's very rare for people for players to develop in the NBA when they've not shown it previously. So those are it's just difficult. It's difficult to project Jalen Duren to become these things when he hasn't shown that he can do it before. And it's rare for it to come out of the blue, which is a downer take, I know, but it is fairly true.
Yeah, no, I'm not arguing with you there. I get the points that he's like a younger guy. You don't really want to necessarily give up on him. It's just that you have needs that you need to fill. Hopefully Duren can get better, and I mean, hopefully Asar can become a better shooter. Like you said, I'm not even banking on him to be a league average 3-point shooter ever. But that's it. Like you mentioned, that's Trajan Langdon's job now to figure out the personnel questions as well as development with the guys that you have in house.
Yep, absolutely. So everyone that tuned in, thank you for all these questions, all the voicemails. This was a ton of fun. Please, we're so bad about asking about this, but if you guys could like and subscribe to the YouTube page, that would be great. It helps us out quite a bit, helps us grow as well. Like the podcast on Spotify, Apple, wherever. Leave a comment if you can. All that stuff really helps us out. We appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much. And Blake, take it away, man.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining, and thank you everyone for sending the voicemail questions. We were thrilled to see how many that we got this week. Reminder to call the number to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. And special thanks to Sean Court, managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And shout out to you guys again for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us here on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.